Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
So welcome back to the T2 Hub with me, Martin Johnson.
And me, Spencer Locker.
Spence, we're back.
And doesn't it feel like a long time since we did this?
Oh, videoing. We haven't had any chance to get in and do some videos, so it's nice to do so. We've got a new setting, as you can see.
Ooh.
We're trying different rooms, different layouts, different versions of videos, from using the Clever Touch to standing up to sitting down. And I think this one very much, Spence, is something we've been talking about lately. I mean, well, it's definitely come about more lately, but we've been talking about this topic for the best part of 2 years, delivering it into customers. And because we've delivered a few of these lately, it was worth just jumping in a nice, relaxed environment and having a discussion about it. Because I think post-pandemic, and now more than ever, this particular topic really matters from a leadership perspective.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about trust-based leadership. TBL, as we call it, but trust-based leadership and the importance of building trust, a foundation of trust with our teams and organizations through this time. You know, in a hybrid world, remote-based working, on-premise working, a mixture of the two, trust and empowerment is more apparent than ever. But what is trust-based leadership? What's the different facets of it? And why is it so important? And I think if we can table that today, Spence, and sort of dissect it, I think that'll be a good use of time. But
certainly,
what do you concur? And what's your experience of working with leaders and organizations where, you know, trust is either, you know, absent or it's there in abundance and the flourishing?
I do concur. I think that...
Well, that's good.
Convenient. But yeah, no, I do concur. And I do believe that it's really become very apt when we start considering psychological safety. When we start considering the Lencioni model of the 5 dysfunctions, I believe that it really brings that trust element to the fore and demonstrates how important it is. I mean, I'm not alone in having experienced both situations. I say both situations, it's not polar, it's on a spectrum.
Yeah.
But I've worked with people that I would run through walls for. Bearing in mind that these are usually my immediate superiors, because I don't see enough of the people further up the chain, but these people have got such a way of leading that it engenders trust, and you'd run through walls for them. They'd ask you to run through walls. Well, they probably wouldn't ask you, but you'd do it anyway.
Do it. And you've also been in those scenarios where it's not built on a foundation of trust. In actual fact, you have mistrust, and all of a sudden your levels of engagement, commitment, passion, motivation, fulfillment, everything is significantly reduced for not only the job, but for them. You know,
you're looking for the exit door.
Yeah.
You're pulling the eject button, or pushing the eject button, pulling the eject lever, whatever
Depends
it is.
Where you are, you could probably push and pull.
Push and pull. Yeah.
Absolutely. So trust-based relationships are incredibly important. They always have. You mentioned the Lencioni model. It's the bottom foundation. It's the first dysfunction of a team. Everything is built on a platform of trust. We talk a lot about that in the work we do. But we also look at what we call the trust-based leadership equation, which here at T2 is something we've created based on our research and findings. And I think it's worth maybe working through the trust-based leadership equation on this video. And I'm sure what we'll do is we'll do some clever editing where as we reveal the equation, it will appear on the screen. And it's just worth thinking about, you know, in relation to you and your team, if you're a leader watching this, how would you think you would score on all of these elements of the equation? What might be missing? Or even if it's not missing, what would create the biggest opportunity for you to improve upon? So let's work through it. Let's talk about the elements of the equation, and we can sort of wrap it up at the end with a few salient points. So let's reveal the equation, Spence. The trust-based leadership equation is credibility plus reliability plus rapport. Say that again because it's worth just digesting for a second. Trustworthiness between leaders and their teams is established when you have credibility, i.e., you are credible with your team members. You're good at your job. You're knowledgeable. You can perform. You've got experience, and therefore you are credible. I find you credible, and therefore there's an element of that which will certainly go towards me trusting you and your, and your actions and decisions. Plus reliability. I can rely upon you to do what you say you're going to do every time. You're there for me. You keep confidentiality. You don't let me down. You don't push my one-to-ones for another meeting. All of this stuff, you do what you say you're going to do every time.
Every time, yeah.
You're reliable, and that will allow me to build trust with you. And finally, and this is a bit the elephant in the room, Spence, and I'll bring you in on your opinion on this, is we didn't expect this to be in the equation, but it features massively in the ingredients of trust. Rapport. Do I bloody like you? And that sounds bizarre in trust. I mean, a lot of people might have said, well, you don't have to like somebody to trust them. As long as they're credible and reliable, etc., it can be, and we'll come on to that. But it does matter. If I like you, if I understand you at a deeper level and you understand me and I understand your motivations and you understand mine and you get to know me, I'm going to trust more. I'm going to open up more and I'm going to trust you.
Yeah. I think having worked with the emergency services quite a lot over the past sort of 18 months, 2-3 years, maybe even, what I've found, particularly with fire and rescue services and police forces as well, there's an element there where you don't necessarily like people, but you trust them. If you're in a team there. Now, it's interesting that we bring this up now because when we start talking about that, we generally find that it's team members. When you start talking about people in charge of a team, leaders and managers, then rapport is very, very important because as much as you go into a team scenario, the rapport might be there, might not be there. But when you're looking at a leadership, it does need to be there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe we can put this image on the screen in a second as we're talking about it, but there's a grid we use, isn't there, which is, if you've got one axis up the left-hand side, which is credibility and reliability, my ability as a leader to execute and to deliver.
Yeah.
Right. And then along the bottom, you've got rapport and motivation. So my ability to lead and inspire. So you've got two axes, the equation split into two axes, which is, how credible and reliable am I, and how much do my people like me? How much rapport and have I got with my staff, and how can I lead and inspire them? Then you'll end up with 4 zones. Any leader who is low on credibility and reliability and low on rapport and motivation, well, quite frankly, you're an idiot, or you'll be seen as an idiot by your team. There'll be nothing there if all 3 ingredients are missing. It's going to be the disengaged zone for your team. So what happens on the grid then when you have high rapport and motivation? So you're really good with people and they all like you and, you get on really well, but you're not very credible or reliable. Those people, those leaders where you go, I could do your job better. Well, you become a friend. It's like that's the ultimate manager or boss who's a friend. It's like the rapport zone.
Yeah, I always, when we start talking about this, I always picture Ricky Gervais in the office trying to be liked and all this, that and the other. And when he's got to do something, which is like have a difficult conversation or something like that, no credibility whatsoever. No credibility at all.
Yeah, everybody just, you become the jester,
don't
you? It's like, you're great to have around and I love going for a beer with you and you're a great boss, but quite frankly, I don't take you too seriously when it comes to, pressure, making decisions and actually doing the job we're here to do. So you become in the rapport zone like a friend, if you like, if you're that. The other element of the equation is what happens when you're high on credibility and reliability. So you are experienced, knowledgeable, you're great at the job, right? I look at you in terms of what we do here and you're to be respected. Yeah. But I don't have any interpersonal rapport with you. And I don't really feel like we're close enough to understand each other. Well, you become a boss. It's the transactional zone. And let me say at this point, and I'm sure you'll agree, Spence, out of all of the 4 zones, the first 2 we explored, the disengaged zone and the rapport zone, are not good to be in as a leader. No. It's very hard to drive trust-based relationships when you're in any of them 2. However, what I will say on the transactional zone is it might not constitute maximum trust and an ideal way of operating, but it serves a purpose. We've all worked for those people where I find you that credible and that reliable that I don't have to be best friends with you. Actually, we come to work, we have a professional relationship. You're my boss, I work for you, and that is good enough for what it serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Ideally, is it where we want leaders to consider being? No. But I sometimes think the transactional zone is, if any other zone is appropriate, it's that one. And you can think of a million bosses you've worked for, where you'll never keep their number in your phone for the rest of your life, but you probably remember your time relatively fondly from what you learned in that experience.
Yeah.
Now, the top right-hand corner, Spence, obviously is the transformational zone. This is where you will be seen as a true trusted leader. High on credibility and reliability, and high on interpersonal rapport. Not only do I want to follow you, are you good at what you do? Are you knowledgeable, experienced? But you get me, I get you. We have enough rapport to have each other's backs, and that supercharges trust.
Yeah, certainly.
And if there's anybody listening to this, look at those elements. Do you want to be seen as a friend? Do you want to be seen as, a boss? You don't want to be seen as an idiot. We know that, right? But if you want to be a true trusted leader, you need to balance the two elements of the equation, which is the execution element and the team and rapport and interpersonal element as well.
Certainly. I think it's actually something that can't be forced, and I think for that to be truly genuine, if you like. I mean, we know people. We've worked with people in the past, not necessarily with Trans2 Performance, but we've worked with people in the past who have got that sort of mental checklist about what do you do at the end of work? Make sure the safe is locked, make sure the security door's down, thank the staff for doing a good job today. And it's just like tick list. It loses all, not so much credibility from a professional perspective, but he's patronising. And you can't establish a rapport with somebody who patronises you.
In most cases, we see the rapport element of the equation falling down because traditionally in hierarchies and leadership and in organizations, the old adage of, the dictatorial autocratic leadership style that came with generations and previous cultures and organizations was, don't get too close to your staff. I remember this when I first did my leadership program some 20 years ago. It was still being said then, don't get too close to the staff personally. Always keep them a little bit at arm's length. So if you have to deliver the tough message or sack somebody or go through a performance plan, you're not too close. It's easier to do from a distance. And I always say, Spence, that's bullshit. It's a massive ingredient in trust-based leadership is building interpersonal rapport. And if you refrain yourself from doing that, you're going to miss a trick. You're going to end up more so in those performance-related situations than you would if maybe you looked at the whole thing up front. I always say, you've got to get close to your people. You've got to increase that rapport level. And if you have to drive a performance-related discussion, have the strength of a leader to do so, but do not let it inhibit your ability to drive trust and rapport.
Certainly. I mean, we talk time and time again. One of the secrets of leadership and management is to truly know your people. If you know your people, then that's building rapport. Do you remember that organisation? I can't remember what it was called. But they had the guy who started the organisation. He was a CEO or the MD or what position he was. Walked in every morning, puts his coat on the back of his chair, picks his coffee up and walks the floor, talks to his people every single morning. He's not going to talk to every single person, but every single morning he's down there. Morning, how are you doing? How's your missus? Is she all right? Because I heard she was poorly. Or your team's not doing great at the moment. Or what? It's just actually integrating. Yeah. Interacting with your people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an old saying, isn't it? Walking the floors and engaging. But it's important. But it's just more about the opportunities as well on a one-on-one basis to have that regular quality time for that individual alone. Individual development plan type stuff. Review processes and just checking in when there's a good job, just taking the time out to recognize. But more so, it's just about understanding that every member of your team, leaders have it the wrong way around. They say, you have to earn my trust. So this is an interesting one. Leaders will go, if you join my team or you're new in, you've got to earn my trust. And then I will entrust you once you've earned it, That's the wrong way around. If you think about the great leaders we work with and the personality styles we work with, who have longevity and have their people behind them, they're like, they switch it all around. They go, I'm going to earn your trust, because when I earn your trust, to your point earlier, you will punch through walls for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go first.
Hmm.
I'm going to give you all the reasons as to why I'm going to be great to work with and for, and why you should trust in me. And if you can do that, I've got your back too, and we'll do this together. And that's what you've got to think about. It's not about because you carry the position of authority, command, or rank that you say, well, it's down to you to earn my trust. That's not what I think building trust-based leadership is all about. It's like, I will work hard from the outset to earn your trust, and in return, I'll get what I require and what I need from you. And that's just worth thinking about if you're watching this video. Go forward, build relationships, earn people's trust. And then on that execution side and the credibility and reliability side, it will naturally just flourish and happen.
And we've talked about credibility, we've talked about rapport, but we've got to remember that reliability, haven't we? Because it's very, very important. So many people promise the world and deliver very little.
If you're going to, talk the talk, walk the walk, and the reliability element is the highest weighting on the equation, because not only can it supercharge trust, but it can absolutely obliterate it in a heartbeat. Credibility is established over time. Rapport is established over time. And it takes more than one little blip to sometimes, you're not incredibly credible and then you make a mistake and you're uncredible. It doesn't happen like that with credibility. And you don't have high degrees of rapport with somebody and then have a little falling out in the office and then all of a sudden you hate them. So the credibility and the credibility and rapport elements are developed or diminished over time, if this makes sense. Reliability, you let me down once, just once, and it can fall off a cliff. I find out that you've talked about me behind my back when I come to you in confidence once. It's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to get that back. So what we find where there's breakages in the trust, where there's gaps, where there's holes, is where one thing happened 3 years ago where you threw me under the bus, and I can't get past it. And that we know this, don't we, all the time? You sit down one-to-ones and they'll go, why don't you get on with that with your peer in the senior leadership team? Well, there was this one time 3 years ago and and you think that's where it's happened. So if you're listening to this, try to be reliable, as in do what you say you're going to do. And if you can't or you don't, own up straight away, apologize, don't make excuses and fix it. Because once the reliability aspect is diminished, it's very, very, very difficult to get it back. And it's the same as if I've got dedicated one-to-one time with you in my diary and you keep pushing it because the CEO keeps wanting to have a last-minute conversation, you're telling me that your importance to me is this big in the grand scheme of things. And it's difficult to get that back. So out of all of them, Spence, you're right. I think reliability is the one where you don't get as many opportunities to make mistakes.
And it's something that you've got to be on the ball with all the time. You mentioned there, if I find out that you've spoken about out of school, if you like, about something that I've shared with you on a very personal basis, a very sort of staff in confidence, and you've talked about that, that'll diminish the reliability in my eyes so much. But not just you, the people you talk to.
Oh yeah,
yeah. When you're talking, if you're sort of saying, "Oh, such and such said this to me," and a bloody nightmare he is, or bloody admin burden and all, then the person you're talking to is sort of saying, "Right, okay, so I know not to share anything with you because you tell people."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Psychological safety goes through the floor.
Yeah.
Trust is absolutely inhibited, and all of a sudden we have a cultural issue within a very small team. And it's all intrinsically linked. If the reliability goes, our rapport goes. If our reliability and rapport has both gone, then that starts to harm the credibility, because all of a sudden I'm struggling to see you as a credible human being, not a professional, just a credible person. So this is why I love the trust-based leadership equation, because it's intrinsically linked. Credibility plus reliability plus rapport. They all absolutely manifest and link into each other. Increasing one can increase the other, and absolutely sabotaging one can sabotage the other. However, in the whole thing, as long as you maintain a maximum level of reliability, the other two can be built over time and established over time. And they're not as quickly damaged in one isolated incident as much as the reliability factor. So it's just worth thinking about. Managers, leaders, stick to your guns, keep your promises, right? Don't let people down. Do what you say you're going to do. Maintain confidentiality. Have my back. That reliability element is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll park it there for that one, Spence. We could talk a lot about this. Hopefully we've, as I say, as we've talked through this and we've put some graphics up on the screen, etc., just to bring this to life. Just think about it and take it away. If you've got access to the T2 Hub, we have on the surveys and assessment section, we have a trust-based leadership survey that you can send out to your teams. Your teams can fill it in anonymously on you, and it'll come back with a report of some gap analysis, where you excelling as a leader on credibility, reliability, and rapport and the different aspects, where your opportunity to build on might be. It's got to be brave. You've got to be open to the feedback. But I would always say, do it. Find out from the team where you sit from a trust perspective. And there's some other great tools on the Hub that you can use around this. But for now, we'll park it there. Spencer Locker, thank you very much.
Johnson, thank you very much.
And we'll be back shortly with another T2 Hub video.